Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to present Nicolas Grenié, who's a hacker in residence at 3Scale. He's been involved in APIs for many, many years, and he's going to talk about APIs and the bot revolution. Take it away, Nicolas.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Steve, for the introduction. So hi, everybody. Very excited to be in Tampere for API Days. First time being here. And today I would like to share some thoughts about the bots and what's happening in the bots world and how that will have implications on APIs and how APIs could help this bot revolution. But just before getting started, a little bit about myself. That's my Twitter handle. You can find it on pretty much other social network. Work at a company named 3Scale as a hacker in residence. We do API management. So we're helping companies and startups to manage their API program. And we have few clients in different industries, as you can see here. If you have any questions, we'll be available with Manfred during the whole conference. And this afternoon we'll also have workshops. But we're here today to talk about bots and specifically the bots like we intend in the 2016 day. So it's mostly bots on a platform like Slack. And I wanted to show you this before deep diving into the subject to show the platform growth and how those platforms, the messaging platforms, are getting bigger and bigger. So that's a graphic they shared like about a month ago, where they say Slack where they say that they have about like 3 million users, and a third of them are actually paying for the platform. But the Slack is used by many teams in a production environment with a lot of productivity involved, with a lot of work-related content. And I think bots are important in this field because you can automate a lot of the process. And a lot of stuff there around work, like setting a meeting, doing some Scrum meetings, doing some requests for to the office manager, HR. All those stuff could be automated through bots. And I think the Slack people have seen this challenge and have seen the growth of their platform because on the last round they decided to dedicate $80 million to fund new Slackbot startups. So they see this as an opportunity for their platform. There are also other platforms in the field, like Telegram. Telegram claim that they have about 100 million users every monthly using their platform. Their growth is impressive, having more than 350,000 users every day signing up for the platform, and they're exchanging billions of calls. This is not just a messaging platform. They were one of the first one to launch the bot API and to let user build those robots. And recently they have announced that they're going to invest more than $1 million helping bot developers bring the bot experience to Telegram. So again, that's a company who is seeing the value of bots and trying to help the bot developers. And the latest one in the field is Facebook. So Facebook obviously has a bigger audience where they claim to have 900 million users, and they just launched a month ago at the Facebook conference, the Facebook Messenger platform. So they're gonna help developers using the Messenger platform to build bot experience. And in a month, they say that they have about 10,000 developers already using the platform to test and build bots. And one of the first bots that was launched was about around Call of Duty, and that's something they mentioned during the last TechCrunch Disrupt conference. And this bot, in a week of time, has exchanged more than 6 million messages. So imagine the scale, imagine the power of those bots. And then I think having a platform like Facebook take the bots that we used to use and used to consider as something professional to something that everybody can use and is not only in the professional environment like Slack. There are other platforms for different markets. We're not going to specifically mention them on their tools, but just to keep in mind, so Kik is also in the bot industry with like 6,000 bots, millions of users. And Line, if you're interested by the Asian market, they also just launched their API, and they actually have a hackathon this weekend. So expect to see more bots coming up from the Asian market and from those platforms. And then, as you can see, there are many titles in the different blogs and the different news article, and different newspaper about the bot industry. So there's a lot of stuff happening. Us, we will be really focused on what's happening for you and your APIs and how you can take part into this revolution. We will focus on 3 different topics, trying to see how the APIs are enabling the bot ecosystem, see what are the implications for your own APIs and how that's going to change, and look at some of the tools that are available for you to build those bots and maybe for you to also build a tool. So we really believe that the APIs are the bot enablers. Without all those APIs, you couldn't build a tool like Birdly. So Birdly is a Slack bot that helps you file your expenses when you're traveling. So you just talk to him on Slack, sending a photo of your ticket expense at the restaurant, and it will fill the expense for you, and it will get approved by someone in your team. So it simplifies the work. Without the API behind it, you can't do the OCR that the app is doing. You can't really bring the value. So if you had to build a bot to do the same thing that would just take space, it will ruin the whole experience. So the APIs here are giving the user the power of doing something cool and valuable using OCR APIs and the Slack platform. Another example would be the new travel agents launched by the Altera website. So just by having a conversation with this bot, and you can actually scan this QR code on your Facebook Messenger, so you can try the app, you will have your own personal agent helping you to define and decide where you want to go, which type of travel you're into. And again, without the API behind this, it would just about asking you questions and have a scripted conversation with you. With the API, you can narrow the conversation and find something that's specific for your needs. The other example, and that's the one that got very famous and put in the front line when they announced the Facebook Messenger platform, it's Poncho. So Poncho is just a simple web bot. It used to be a mobile app, but now they switch and they are going to promote mostly the bot, and it's about weather. So here's an example with the Tampere data. In this case, Poncho obviously is not the one who has the data, but they are consuming the API of a weather data service, and with this data, they will enrich the experience and give you some funny texts. So without all those APIs, I think those bots couldn't exist, and there are just few examples. If you don't use APIs, you are most likely to end up with a stupid bot that just answer your basic questions, and you will be having the same experience that we were trying to have when we were building the AIs like 20 or 30 years ago. But that's not really where we are right now. A bot has to enable and get information from other services. That's where the intelligence comes from, and not in the conversation level. So having API will help you grow the experience and grow the intelligence of your bot. It also gives power to the bot to act and do some activities. So having a bot that just gives you results, that's interesting. But if you give API access to a bot, then he could do much more. He will be able to book a table for you at the restaurant, book a trip. He will be able to take real actions on real objects. So turning off a light or switching on the TV. So I think we can use the same thing that we used to say about teach a man, like give a man a fish and he will eat once. With bot, if you just ask a question once to a bot, he will give you one answer. But if you give him API access, then you unleash his power and you let him grow, and you can add more functionalities to this bot. So we see that bots are part of the APIs are part of the bot experience, and without APIs, they can't really do much. But being scripted actors. But how does this change your API and your way of consuming concepting APIs? So I get the feeling that those bots will also change the APIs, and we see this through the evolution of the interface. So we used to interact with a web service, with a website, through what we call now UI, the user interface. So it used to be point and click. It used to be a menu that you will go through, list the different items in the menu. You will be able to sort the table, sort the results of a search, easily clicking through all those stuff because they were shiny, because they were easy, and because people got used to this type of interface. But now we're getting in a new age with those bots where the whole interface disappeared, and this whole interface now is just messages. And I think we're moving from this user interface to the conversational interface. It doesn't really matter where it's happening, on which platform it's happening, but the conversation it's really the interface that you're using with the bot. And we've seen few trials from the platforms, the messaging platforms, trying to enrich the experience to go over simple text. So that's an example, for example, on the Paksha bot, where he will ask you which type of forecast that you're interested in. And the platform, the Facebook platform, has a way for bot builders to give you a list of options, and you select one of these options, and then the bot will do its own thing. Same thing with Telegram. They have also this type of features where they will limit the options, and they will change the keyboard to a custom keyboard, and you can then pick a decision, and then send the result back to the bot. So these type of behaviors change the way you interact with a web service, with a bot, and also change the way you're going to consume APIs. If you make an API, you should assume that you're going to receive a lot of generic inputs. Nothing is going to be too precise, and you will have to make a lot of guesses because by definition, you don't define the way the people are going to interact with your bot. So you should be ready to have as much generic information as possible. And if your API is able to answer to generic inputs, then it's a good win for yourself and a good win also for bot builders, because they will be able to grow the experience and build something faster and easier. The example on this is my personal experience. I wanted to build something using the Crunchbase API with my Amazon Echo. So I've brought the Amazon Echo here, and the Amazon Echo is this device that you can talk to, and they basically put a Siri in a box, and this Siri this Alexa Amazon Echo sits on your next to your TV, and you can ask her questions. So for example, you can ask her, Alexa, what time is it?
The time is 8:47.
Okay, so that's very straightforward information. You can try to get more complex information, like, Alexa, what's the name of the president of Finland? So I cannot see my Alexa, so I don't know if it's... Alexa, what's the name of the president of Finland?
Finland's president is Sauli Niinistö.
So you can go from really simple questions to this device that are some question that she has on her own memory, or you can try to get complex questions like the one about the presidents, and that will use, I guess, third-party services to get in this information. In this case, that might be Wikipedia information. In our case, we wanted to do something similar where you ask questions about startups because you might be in a situation where you don't know the information about the startups. So you would like to ask, Alexa, ask startup info about Uber.
Here's what I have found about Uber. Uber is a mobile app connecting passengers with drivers for hire.
And so she will give you information that comes directly from the Crunchbase API, but you can also ask her stuff about the founders, how much rounds did they raise, and if they got IPO. So I really encourage you to check this skill on the Amazon Alexa store. But really the part that's interesting into this is not really the app itself, but the struggles that we faced and the implication it has on the Crunchbase APIs that we used as a base for our application. When we made a request to check for Uber, the app is looking for the Uber word, and you expect that in a database of companies, if you look for Uber, the first result will be the Uber that we all know, the Uber.com company. But in the Crunchbase API, it's not the case because the results are not really organized. So it was on my side to try to find some filters, try to guess which type of company the people were looking for, and organize the data. If the API was made in a better way, it will have given me a confidence score to tell me that this company that was called Uber for X was not maybe the real Uber I was looking for. And now, in my case, now in this application, I have to make another call to verify that the Uber is the corresponding Uber. So it makes the thing a bit harder to integrate, and I have now 2 calls instead of 1 to the API. So I really think that if you're building an API that should be consumed by bots or a voice interface like the Amazon Echo, there should be some reasoning system. Being able to sort quickly the results, because now you don't have the luxury of having a list that you can scroll or that you can sort by pointing and clicking. You really have a small, limited time frame, so a frame to express the result of something. So if the Alexa app was listing all the different Uber applications that it found, it will only go through the first 3 or the first 4, 5 maybe, because people don't have time. That's not the way they interact with this device. Same thing with the bots. People don't have the screen to scroll through a whole list. They want direct result and direct communication with the bot. So if you add some reasoning in the API, you help the bot builders building an interesting experience. Another example with our API Bunny game. So the API Bunny is something we do every year for Easter at 3Scale, and this year we decided to embrace this whole movement around bots, and we build API Bunny on Slack. So API Bunny is a bunny game where the bunny gets stuck in a maze and he has to escape this maze. This time we decided to make it a text adventure game on Slack, so people will have to go through a set of questions, finding some clues, finding some puzzles, and give instruction to the bot on where to go next. So it was again on us to imagine the API behind it, but also imagine the way it will be consumed by the people and which type of interaction they will have with the bot. Inventing this new interface, inventing the way, like inventing what will give back to the user, which type of results they will be expecting, and how to put that in place, and how to frame this. So that could be also a good example for you on how you should adapt your message to a bot consumption. Another part that's I think interesting in the APIs and what we could do with bot is that now you can build tools to help other developers building bots, and you're gonna make the bot builder's life way easier. They have a few problems to solve, and we're gonna see that one of the first problem, one of the problem they will need to solve is the NLP comprehension, because again, there is no syntax. You want your try to be able to have a syntax so it doesn't look like a command line tool, because that's not what normal users are used to use every day. They are more likely to talk naturally, and so if you provide them tools to understand what the user wants and what are the intents, you can save a lot of time to bot users. If you're already making an API today, I think there is a new audience you should target your API to, and that would be the bot builders. The bot builders are going to build a bunch of different bots. There's going to be a ton of weather bot, but there's also a lot of generic bots that will do a bit of everything. And those bots are most likely to be used by people. They will use these generic bots for everything that's generic, and then use a specific bot for something specific. But if you are the provider of the weather information for the generic bot, then it's a huge win for you, because there's going to be more people seeing your brand and more people seeing your data. So if you're trying to get the developer to consume your data, you should target this developer, the one who is building the generic bot, and have messages, have advertisement, have tutorial dedicated to the people who are building bots. So a question you should ask yourself right now will be, is your API ready to be consumed by a bot? Do the tutorials that you have in place are good for this type of use case? And should you try to get involved with all different platforms that bot builders are already using? So those are examples of the NLP platform that you can use to build bots. So the funny thing around this is, like, those platforms, like especially the two first ones, API.ai and with.ai, they were not meant to be for bots at the beginning. They were meant for people to build Siri-like Siri-like applications. But they realized that what they've built for voice recognition could be applied as well to text recognition. And now they almost repackaged their whole branding and their whole message into something dedicated to bots. And so API now has integration with Slack, with Telegram, with Amazon Echo, and much more, and other platforms. But that could be also an interesting way for you to provide integration with those different platforms, because it's most likely that developers will use them, because making your own NLP parser will be hard. And also, it could be a good example of how you have a specific product on a specific use case, and how you can brand it around the bot ecosystem, and how you can get attention from this bot builders crowd. So if you're just to take some stuff away from this presentation, I will say check your API right now and see how does it respond, and how does it answer to interaction that don't have UI. So examples like the different bots that I showed you, or an Amazon Echo skill. By doing this, you will feel the pain of a bot builder. You will see really what could be improved, and how you can change the API. Try those new AI tools that I've mentioned before, because those tools are going to be used by the bot builders. And so if you can provide tutorials to be integrated easily, that's also a good win for you, and definitely a way to get more engagement from the bot community. And maybe if you already have an API, try to think about the messaging you want to put around this, and try to target this specific audience. That will maybe give you more API usage, and grow your developer community. All right, I think that's all for me. I put some awesome bots that I like, because there are many. They are shipped in different ways, and they will interact in different manners with your API. Just try to embrace this movement and be part of it. Thank you.
All right.
That's pretty short.
Okay, cool. Good stuff. A lot of good things. I guess I'm gonna just stop